Hello everyone, it's David from Automotive Press. I am in this beautiful parts of British Columbia in southern tip of Vancouver Island, driving the all-new 2024 Kona Electric. And you know what? This one addresses most of the problems that people are facing these days in transitioning from gasoline engine cars to electric, which are things like affordability, range, and also just infrastructure problem in terms of how long it's taking to charge these vehicles. I believe this is actually the best affordable EV in the market now, thanks to a great driving experience, but also great pricing. And also this is much bigger than it used to be. So I'm gonna give you 5 reasons why this Kona EV is the best affordable electric car. Let's go. Welcome back. As I mentioned, I think this is one of the best affordable electric vehicles out there. But before I go too far, I'm gonna talk about 5 important things about the electric Kona. And one of them is actually the manufacturing quality. This is built in Korea at the Ulsan factory, which is in the south tip of Korea. It is the biggest factory that Hyundai has. So let's see how good the quality is based on my expectation as an engineer. I always do that, as you know. I'm going to measure the gap between the panels. This one is 3.5. 3.5 looks perfect so far right here. This is a production model, by the way. Also 3.5, and then 3.6. and then 3.6, and actually at the back one more here. Usually it's wider here in the back just because this is a hatchback, is 4.5 millimeters. So far about 3.5 millimeter all the way through, and that's perhaps one of the best gaps you can see, because most cars are between 3 millimeter, which is for really good car, all the way over to 5 millimeters. This one is before 4 millimeter, which means it's almost at the Lexus level of manufacturing quality for the exterior part. And then more important than that, these guys made it a nightmare for manufacturing people by having all these creases, which means they have to line up everything. But you can see that this lined up over here, this looks good. And all these creases, which will be a problem for manufacturing people, but they got it right. Every single crease lined up. And that is not a simple task to do. And so the panel fit looks really good. Let's take a look at the paint quality quickly to see if the paint is also good. And so I'm going to quickly do a calibration here and measure the paint thickness of these vehicles. So this is 125 microns, and on the side panel 110, and one more 93. So you usually want the paint job to be between 100 to 150 microns. Most Toyotas are between 100 to 120, some are a little bit lower. And as they improve the paint technology, the paint does get a little bit thinner these days. But thankfully, so far, at least in the hood here, it was about 120 or so. And so there's plenty of paint on the hood, about 110, a little bit thinner on the doors, which is often the case. So as you can see, the paint thickness is pretty reasonable. It's a bit thinner than what I like, but in terms of quality of the paint, it looks really good. The quality of the actual clear coat, the type of pigmentation they use, they all look good. Is it as good as in a luxury car? Well, obviously not. But in comparing to other vehicles of this price range, sort of a $40,000 to $50,000 range here in Canada, you're not going to get any better quality. I also think that reliability has improved over the years, because Hyundai has been working on that for many years now. And I do believe that it's as good as many brands out there. So I think people do not have to worry too much. So anyway, that is one of the 5 points I want to talk about on this electric Kona. Okay, so now I'm inside the Hyundai Kona electric vehicle. And you know what? There aren't too many competition anymore in this price range. And that's why among some of the cheaper EVs, this is definitely the best one to buy. I think I just showed you the outside, which has a really good quality. And even the reliability, which some of you guys still question about Hyundai product, actually have gotten really good. And if you look at some of the data coming in and some of the actual historical record over the last several years, Hyundai is as good or better than some of the other Japanese brands. So I don't think you need to worry too much about that. They've really got the engineering thing sorted out. And as I will show you now in terms of interior, the build quality is absolutely excellent. I think the paint job maybe not quite as good as the Toyota or Lexus brands, because I noticed that the paint job is a little bit thinner than what I like to see. But everything else looks good. So my second reason for recommending the Kona EV is the fact that it is full of technology and updated features that you just normally cannot get in this price range. along with the really good quality of the interior as well. So let me flip the camera now and show you a few things. So as I look around the interior, I can first of all tell you that there's a lot of similarity between this and the more expensive Ioniq 5 and Ioniq 6, which is a good thing because this is supposed to be an entry-level car, but it looks premium from all different angles, and you get 12.3 inches digital cluster, but also 12.3 inches infotainment system, which is rare in this price range. Most manufacturers either don't have both digital, or if they do, this is a smaller screen, but you get as much feature and technology as cars costing maybe twice as much. All the quality of the buttons, the design, as well as the actual material, fit and finish looks really good. You can look at the gaps over here. The gap, everything looks tight. Nothing seems to be out of place. And the selection of materials are also excellent. Lots of soft plastic, not too many hard plastic. Even here it's covered a little bit with a textured plastic, and you get a cloth on the ceiling. You do get a bit of a hard plastic here, but it's soft plastic here. And even the door console here looks good with the buttons that light up at night. And then you've got the center console here. Sorry, I got a lot of stuff going on here, but with proper cup holder here, that's nice and big enough, and a wireless charger over here, and full charging port here as well. So no complaints about technology, and thankfully these have real buttons, and I'm really glad Hyundai has gone back to offering real switches and buttons instead of everything inside a small screen as they have in some other vehicles. So we have buttons here and more switches and controls on the steering as well. So thankfully everything is easy to figure out and everything is close to your hands. So actually ergonomics is really good. Even the glove compartment is nice and big. Many electric cars do not offer glove compartment anymore, so this is a bonus, and it's also really roomy and practical. You get a little bit of shelf over here as well. But as you can tell, the main thing is the quality of the fit and finish. All these seams I'm looking at, there's not a squeak or rattle I heard on this car. If I do my usual punch test, wow, it's super solid. I'm seeing nothing out of place. So interior quality is good. You get all of the usual connected services as well. And very importantly, we now have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You don't have to hook up to an actual cable to get that, as we have to do with some other Hyundai product. So everything is good. You even get things like a digital key that you can use with your smartphone and share your digital key with other friends or families. So you get lots of the upscale, more expensive cars feature in this particular Kona. And as I'm driving this, I can tell you right now that this car feels premium. It does not feel like an affordable small EV. It actually feels like a much more expensive car, both inside and out. So the interior is good, the quality is good, and technology is all there. What about the charging time? Because that's another major complaint by potential EV buyers, is that it just takes too long to charge the battery. And then, you know what? Even the infrastructure is not there, so it's really hard to convince people to buy electric cars. But if you can shorten that time, well, it gives you a compelling reason to consider EVs, especially something like this Kona. Well, they made some substantial improvements because with a level 2 charger, which is something you can get installed at home, they went from 9 hours and 15 minutes to go from 0 to 100% to this new Kona EV, which is 6 hours and 14 minutes. That's 3-hour reduction in the charging time for level 2, which is what most of us will actually use. 6 hours to go 100%, I think that's a really good time. And if you do have access to level 3 chargers, well, it's even more impressive because you can go from 10 to 80% in just 43 minutes. So ideally, if you're going a long trip, you have access to level 3, hook it up for 43 minutes, go and have a lunch or something, come out and ready to go because it's almost fully charged. Now, in terms of the level 3 charging times, it hasn't improved that much from previous Kona EV, but any improvement is welcome. Either way, you can't really say it takes too long to charge now because I think the charging times are phenomenal. And you also get very good range as well, which is 420 kilometers or approximately 260 miles. And that is more than sufficient to use the vehicle for several days. And with the fast charging times, I think we're finally reaching a point where these EVs are actually quite practical and usable. I wouldn't accept anything less than 420 kilometers or 400 kilometers approximately. So I think that's a good thing. And I also want to continue talking about other reasons why this is the best affordable EV. The fourth point is an important one because it's all to do with the driving character. And this is perhaps the biggest surprise of the Kona EV. simply because it doesn't drive like an entry-level vehicle. When I take this up on the highway, drive in the city, over a rough pavement, under all kinds of conditions, and this thing feels way more premium and much more expensive than what the price might suggest. I think it actually feels like a $60,000 car as opposed to a $40,000 car in terms of Canadian funds, and it performs more like a European car. What do I mean by that? Well, the steering is tight, has a good road feel. It's not too numb and too light like many other EVs. The ride is firm but controlled. Suspension design is really good. It stays flat around the corners. And even though it's not the fastest EVs around, there's plenty of torque and plenty of power when you step on the gas, which by the way is a 201 horsepower, unchanged from before, but it simply accelerates with a really refined feel. If you were to buy a much more expensive electric car, especially from, let's say, European manufacturers, you're not going to get much better ride or refinement or feel than this one. Yes, this is an entry-level vehicle, but honestly, it drives fantastic. I think it really is the best driving electric vehicle in this price range, mainly because there aren't that many cars in this price range to begin with. But even if I were to compare this vehicle to an electric car costing 20-30% more, wow, this one competes really effectively. So that's my fourth point. I think if you were imagining an entry-level, affordable EV feeling like a cheaper car, well, you'll be surprised. The quietness, the smoothness, the refinement, and just the drivability and the handling and cornering are all big surprise to me. So kudos to Hyundai for being able to design something that is above and beyond expectations for an entry-level EV. And even if you were to compare it to other gasoline cars in this price range, you'll be pleasantly surprised to find out how well this thing performs. So that's the 4th point I want to talk about. Now let's get into the 5th point, which is all to do with practicality, interior roominess, and functionality of this Kona EV. The 5th and the last point is very important because you are buying an entry-level smaller car, and therefore you might be concerned that is too small or not big enough. Well, that's not the case with Kona EV. This thing is actually 6 inches longer than it used to be. It's also 1 inch wider, and therefore it's quite a bit bigger than it used to be. It's no longer a small subcompact. It's almost like a compact to mid-size level, and the interior is improved quite a bit. Let's open the back door here and I'll show you how much bigger it is than it used to be. So as an example here in the rear legroom has improved by 3 inches compared to before. So if I were to sit down here, I've got the front seat where I would normally sit, and as you can tell, I still got a few inches, actually more than a few inches here in the back. So no problem at all. And then also in terms of headroom, it's no problem at all. I got lots of space here. I'm not touching it even if I were to lean back like this. So plenty of space in the back. Is very practical. Seats are very comfortable, and the trunk capacity has improved by 33% compared to the predecessor, which is an important one. So let me show you the trunk as well. As you can see, even with the second seat up, you got plenty of space, good depth over here as well. This is way bigger than what you'll find in normal compact vehicles, and combine this with a very roomy interior. This is probably one of the most practical and functional small EVs around. You even get a small front trunk in this one, just big enough maybe to put a small laptop bag or something like that, but you still get some kind of storage. There is no spare in this one, which means you also get additional space underneath the floor as well. And by the way, surprise, there is an actual rear wiper blade on this one, where most electric cars have went away with the rear wiper blade. Great to have this on Kona Electric. So as a conclusion, what do I really think of the Kona EV? Well, I think this is a bit of a hidden gem, not only because of the pricing, a good range, good charging functionality, but also in terms of how this thing drives, how it feels on the road, the overall performance, even the overall manufacturing quality are all pretty close to being world class. And at this price range, there's nothing that comes close to it in terms of value for money. And that's why I'm claiming this, and I'm going to stick with this position, that this Hyundai Kona EV is the best affordable EV in this price range. And you know what? even if I were to creep up to another $10,000 or $20,000 more, not too many vehicles can compete with this in terms of the value it offers. So I hope you enjoyed my video. I know many of you guys are still skeptical about moving to EVs because of all these issues that we're still encountering in terms of range anxiety, in terms of how long it takes to charge the battery, and also just affordability because they're all pretty expensive. And I think more than any other car, the Kona EV addresses those issues and makes it easier for many of us who's been holding back to transition from gasoline car to electric cars. But don't take my word for it. Go and test drive a Kona EV if you can find one, and then compare it to other EVs, even compared to Tesla, and you're going to come to the same conclusion as I did, which is the fact that there aren't anything else out there in this price range that's better than Kona EV. If you learned something from my video, I would appreciate if you can give me a thumbs up, make some comments. If you haven't done so yet, would you kindly subscribe as well. But until next video, I'm signing off for now. Thank you so much.